Welcome to the Quality of Life podcast, where we explore how hospice and palliative care may enhance quality of life for patients living with a serious illness. Here is your host, hospice and palliative care leader and educator, Dr. Millicent Burke-Sinclair.
Hello and welcome to the Quality of Life podcast. I'm here today with Four Seasons Chief Innovation Officer, Ryan Cannon. Welcome.
Thank you, Millicent. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad to spend a few minutes dialoguing with you around the benefits of calling hospice earlier rather than later. And in fact, I'm thinking about our listeners just accessing care earlier rather than later. Sometimes people don't know what they need. And so I wonder, as you think about your role and think about Four Seasons, if you could just share with listeners what you feel like might be important for them to know about how can they access care early.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we get that a lot because people think it's a door you can go through, but you can't come back from. And so we always try to tell people Four Seasons Hospice is a service. Yeah. So if you elect to learn more or have a conversation with your healthcare provider, your primary care physician, you're not going down a road that you can't come back from. But it's also a place where the more you know, the better informed decisions you can make. And we always try to tell people, take that first step. Have the courage to have that first conversation because you don't know what you don't know. And so you have to lean in on your relationships. Now, that could be your caregiver. That could be your primary care provider. It may be another loved one who's gone through a similar situation. All these things help you understand what's possible relative to your goals.
You know, one of the things that you mentioned that I really liked was about what's possible. And so could you talk a little bit about Four Seasons Care, what we offer, and why accessing it early matters, especially around the holidays? You know, oftentimes we hear, well, I'm going to delay, whether it's a referral for a loved one or for yourself. I'm going to delay till after the holidays. But I'd love for listeners to hear why accessing care before the holidays could truly help your holidays be even better.
Yeah, it's very, very, very true. So one of the things that often comes up is you may see a loved one only during the holidays, or you may see them with regularity. Regardless of the situation, there's things that may come up during that conversation with our team at Four Seasons that may help you look at things differently. Like one that comes to mind for me with loved ones I've lost in the past, friends, family, etc. What if my loved one is wearing more clothes than they're appropriate? What are they trying to hide, or are they just cold? Is it just merely adjusting a thermostat? So when you think about access, it becomes a situation where we all love Google. We want you to be able to go find information, but we want to provide trusted information. And things that have been verified over time, more than 40 years, we want to be able to say, these are things that may come up. Now, one of the things that most people don't realize is as you get older, the services that you're going to need all relate to your quality of life. And quality of life just doesn't occur in the doctor's appointment. Or if you find yourself in the emergency room or urgent care, those are aspects to help your quality of life, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. What I would encourage everybody to think about relative to access is you need a game plan that can follow you 24/7, but you also need a resource so that if something comes up on a Sunday at midnight and you're like, I need to ask this question, please don't Google that. Reach out to a trusted team member. Let us help you. We're here 24/7 just for that reason.
And I really appreciate what you just said, because that's one thing that Four Seasons strives to do is be available, be accessible. And so, as Ryan mentioned, we are available 24/7. We have individuals who work all hours because we want to make sure our community has access to the care they need when they need it most. And so that makes me think about accessing care before the holidays. I heard you mention a couple of things. Sometimes we don't see loved ones until around the holidays. And we might notice, you know, maybe they're not picking up their foot the same way. Maybe when they're eating, they're having a little bit of a challenge. What would you say to someone who is observing? How do you start a conversation?
That can be the most challenging start or aspect of the conversation. How do I begin? And so I would encourage you to start by sharing your personal experience. So I might say something like, Millicent, I'm this age and I'm having these challenges, or this is how I'm managing my health, or everything else that's going on. That could be kids, work, etc. Once you start sharing, you create a safe place for them to share. And then that may not all happen during the holiday period, that 4 to 6 week holiday period, but imagine what that gives you post-holidays, and you're really creating a safe place for everyone in your family to see what's possible with conversation. The other thing that people don't realize is if I'm having that conversation with my mother, my father, my grandfather, grandmother, I'm also showing my children what's possible. So you're becoming a role model for how families support each other and share. That's something that people don't realize because we're so hyper-focused on the here and now and the present that we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. You know, as you were talking, I heard again the possible. I heard support. And so if we think about what's possible, accessing care, accessing hospice specifically, before the holidays, even before Thanksgiving, it's still possible, right? And so if someone says, all right, I'm really feeling like I need more, or my loved one needs more, and I'm not exactly sure what that more is, they can just call us. That's right. Could you talk a little bit about how people can access hospice care?
Yeah, so we're open access in every way possible. So that could be a phone call. You could come into one of our offices. You may see somebody with a badge in the grocery store and say, hey, my name's Ryan. I have a question. It's all okay. There's none of our team members are going to turn you away because you don't fit a certain mold. Ideally, we'd like to have conversations with your primary care provider, other healthcare team members, but that's not the only way to open the door to having a conversation with us. So if you're calling us and you don't have a loved one with you that you provide care for, that's okay. If you want to have that conversation with your loved one who needs care, that's okay too. The answer is there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong method to seek care or learn more about care. And the other thing that sometimes people will get turned off by is that you may be having a conversation with your primary care provider that looks something like they're trying to talk you out of hospice or they don't think it's appropriate. That's still an okay opportunity to call us and just ask for clarifying information. Now, that information, you may not have a goal, but calling us at any time is appropriate just so we can help. Now, the other thing that we want you to understand is even if hospice isn't right for you today, it can still help you in the future better identify what's necessary to help you and your loved one.
Well, I would encourage listeners to go on to our website if you have access to the internet, because you can read about all of our services. And for Ryan's example, if hospice isn't the best choice at the time, we have palliative care, we have home care, we have care navigation. And so we want to make sure you have access to any of the care that you need as soon as you need it. Specifically speaking about hospice, because oftentimes as the holidays come about, and, family comes over, friends come, or even you find that you're having a holiday that might be more towards yourself, and there can be feelings and thoughts. And those feelings and thoughts could say, well, if I call and actually have care, it might get in the way, or it might make my family or my friends feel uncomfortable, or I'm just not ready to commit because I want to have what little bit of holiday I might have left. So could you talk a little bit about how hospice can come in and not be in the way, but add more support?
Of course. So the idea with our hospice services is we'll provide care wherever you call home. The other thing that people may not realize is you may be thinking hospice does this one thing. They'll only do this one thing. Whatever that one thing is, I would encourage you to challenge your ideas, and learn more. The other thing that you may find when you reach out to us, ideally before the holidays, is we may add other community resources that you're not aware about, because we look at it as our job is not only to provide care, but to provide navigation of resources. And so I would encourage you to call and think about that as a gift to yourself and to your loved one during the holiday season, because it may provide peace of mind. It may provide comfort. The challenge with comfort and peace of mind is you only know those things if you've experienced them firsthand, and we take pride in the privilege to care for you and your loved one in that circumstance.
Thinking about a gift for yourself or a gift for your loved one. It might be easy for someone to order a gift or pick out a gift, but when I think about accessing care, that is a gift of quality of life, of trusted care, of peace of mind, of, when you fill in the blank. And so oftentimes people will say, hospice is for the final days. In fact, we know hospice is for much more than that in most cases. So could you share with our listeners a little bit about if they're thinking, well, I don't know that my loved one's in the final days. It might be in, 6 months, or not sure. This is all new for us. Could you talk just a little bit about the quality of life that's added when you seek information and access for hospice care before it's the last couple of days?
So the quality of life can be a hard topic to cover where it fits everybody. Really, it's kind of a broad brushstroke. The way you make that personal is you think about your goals and your needs, and they're different for every person. But once you begin thinking in that way, you can begin to see that, well, if I have this goal in the future, whatever it is, could be a loved one's wedding or other milestone that you want to participate in, could be a bucket list item, right? I want to do these things. These are aspects of my life that could stand in my way. Much in the same way, a budget or other aspect could stand in your way. Your health is integral to your future, your quality of life, and how much joy you're going to have in the time you have left. So as you think about that, I would encourage everybody to think about quality of life in personal terms, because your quality of life is going to be different than the next person, but also think about your quality of life relative to your caregiver and your loved ones involved, because so much of what we do at Four Seasons and hospice care in general is focused on the patient, the person who's most important, but also their caregiver, what we typically call the most involved person, and it may be persons depending on your family. So we want to get a good understanding of what Ryan's needs are if he's the patient, but what about Ryan's family? And think about that, because as you're going through this period of your life, you're also teaching everybody around you what that can be and what's possible. And I know we keep coming back to the idea of what's possible, but it's different for every person. And so the only way to learn is to take that first step. Reach out to us. You can call us on the phone, come to our website. We are a resource, and no question is out of bounds.
That makes me think about our services for caregivers, because as you mentioned earlier, it's a gift for yourself, or it's a gift for the one in need, right? To access care earlier, but it's also a gift to those around you that care about you. And so could you maybe share a story or an example of how Four Seasons also provides support to the caregiver?
The caregiver is the focus of everything from education, preparedness, what to do in emergency, but also these are some of the normal things you're going to experience. Now, you can't see me on the podcast, but I'm using air quotes for normal because it's different for every person. But the other side of that is all of us will face this experience. So it's not a situation where you can put your head in the sand. And what I mean by that is we also follow the patient's family, everybody involved after they've left this earth. And that's important because there's a lot of things that you're going to have to experience as you go through that. And most of us don't experience it until we've lost a loved one. And you really can't understand what to do unless you have a trusted resource like Four Seasons. Now, that could be bereavement support. That could be, what do I do with this documentation that just came in the mail? We can help you navigate that environment, and it would be our privilege to help you.
I like what you're saying because it makes me think about why Four Seasons exists. We were founded in 1979 to provide care to anyone who needs it. And what was important and what remains important is that we co-create the most trusted care for that person and their most involved people, the individuals that care about them. And so when I think about calling hospice, as soon as an individual has the thought this could be beneficial, certainly there is a process that internally goes through to make sure that hospice is appropriate and the person is eligible, but we don't want anything to delay calling and asking, because I am certain that we have a resource within Four Seasons or throughout the community that we could connect with to add more quality to life. That's kind of that co-creating commitment that we have. And so as listeners are processing what we've been saying, I'm just wondering if there's anything else you feel would be important for listeners to kind of take away from this. Is we're going into the holidays. I might, or my loved one might need care. I don't know where to start, and it's a little scary.
I think an aspect of this that we haven't touched on that I think you're poking on right now is who has concerns in a family. So as you're spending time with your family during the holidays, we all have seen this scene before, had this experience where your loved one who everyone maybe have concerns about has gone to bed or is out on the porch or what have you. You know, and you can probably think to yourself right now, who are the other family members who may have something to say, who may have a need, who may have a desire, who may have a question. I would encourage you to go ahead and write those down and reach out to those other loved ones and say, hey, Millicent, I thought about you relative to our grandfather or what have you. I just want to see, is this your biggest concern? Because as you're navigating that conversation and creating the courage, I'll use the term courage, to make the first phone call or to have that conversation, you want to have those top of mind so that you can get all the information you need. So if it is at Thanksgiving, the next conversation happens, you're prepared. Now, the other thing that you may not realize is that Four Seasons is also set up to help you prepare for these conversations. So if you were to call us and say, hi, this is Ryan. I have a loved one that I'm not really sure how to broach this conversation. I'm not really sure who I should talk to in our healthcare team. Where do I begin? Now, that may sound like, how would we help? Well, we would absolutely meet you where you are and say, okay, here's some things to keep in mind. Here's some resources we have. That is a perfect way to start the conversation with us so we can prepare you for that conversation with everybody in your circle.
I think that's really important for our listeners with what Ryan just said, because you might be wondering, well, if I call, I'm only one person. And there's multiple adult children. There's multiple extended family members who would want to know and need to be a part of this conversation. Four Seasons makes that possible. We have family meetings. It can be in person. It can be virtual, by computer, by phone, all confidential, all protected, and all at the convenience of what suits you best. And so there's really not a barrier to calling. And we would just encourage you to pick up the phone and call or go online and send in a message, because every individual deserves access to high quality care, and Four Seasons provides it. Now, one question you might be wondering is, if I'm feeling like this might be needed before holidays, I'm a little concerned because I want them to stay in their home, or I want them to get to come to my home. Could you talk about where we provide hospice services and how they could stay in their home?
Of course, yeah. So with us, this is not intended to be a disclaimer type. Well, asterisk, only certain homes, only certain situations. We will follow you and provide care wherever you call home. Now, that even includes if you may be going to stay with family for a period of time during the holidays. We will get you preparation, give you resources so that you can go there and we can reduce your concerns we're going back to the phrase again, to improve your quality of life. Now, one of the things you're going to have to think about with that is, what are my needs? What questions do I have? We'll get you ready. And even if you have more questions after the fact, we will get you ready so that you can have that holiday season with your family and make it a very memorable one.
And if you have questions or concerns about, well, how do we even go about doing this? How do we pay for this? When do we know? Just call us, because this is a Medicare benefit. We want to make sure everyone has access to care regardless of their ability to pay. And what matters most to us is that every person within our community gets that trusted care they need as soon as they need it. So call us today. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. And for more information about our services, we'd encourage our listeners to visit us at fourseasonscare.org.
The Quality of Life podcast is produced by Four Seasons, the care you trust, providing award-winning quality hospice and palliative care to Western North Carolina. For more information, visit fourseasonscare.org or call 866-466-9734.